live.
All right. Let me know when we're live.
Okay, we are live.
All right. Awesome. Well, welcome back everyone to the FPL Script. This is season 4, episode 12. But really, it's our Gameweek 11 preview for the 25-26 season. How was your weekend, JD?
Yeah, hi everyone. So, weekend was good. Week day was also good, I guess. Today with captaining Osimhen. So, yeah, I hope we get that sort of luck in FPL. Although Holland has been smashing it, so I'm not complaining about that. It's just differential points, right? Like the fewer people own, the better it feels. So other than that, we can probably just dive into Game Week 10. I mean, it's fairly straightforward. Like a lot of teams kept clean sheets. You had Anderson from Fulham. I had triple Arsenal defense once again. So I'm just glad they're keeping a pace with someone like Saka, or at least outscoring him. But I'm pretty sure that one game is going to come when Saka is going to massively outscore Timber. So we'll have to take that in stride when that does happen. Other than that, my transfer obviously failed with I had Ismail Assar, whom I bought in place of Foden. Foden assisted, but he got a yellow card, so it didn't end up to be like a massive difference. Enzo blanked again. Mateta's points means less and less, or the more we progress into better fixtures for Palace. So yeah. Also, Bruno started off really nice, and then just nothing. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being greedy, but those 5 points felt a little uh, unjust for what he's been doing, especially against Brighton, right? What about your week? I know we got the same points, but
Yeah, week was good. I think, obviously, I want more from Saka, but then I think, watching the game, I was like, every Saka chance came from Gyökeres. So I
yeah.
was like, oh,
Yeah.
do I care? No. I mean, I would have loved to have a midfielder score points. So
Yeah.
that didn't really happen, apart from Bruno, as you mentioned. But I think it's nice that we're kind of sitting on a Virgil ownership, like for now. What actually will
Yeah.
just pain me though is if everyone just moves towards Virgil in game week 12 and suddenly the points start rolling in. Like that will, but I think I think it's likely to happen. However, I still
It
think
is.
there's like a large amount of the engaged field that don't like Virgil, simply because he's not done many points anyways. And so I'm kind of hoping that Virgil does well and kind of remains a differential for us in this meantime. Obviously, yeah, as you said, we have different-ish teams. I do hope Saka can kind of claw some points back versus what almost all the other triple Arsenal picks have been doing as of late. Like even Gyökeres has done something. But I think when I look back in retrospect, like I also got a Krupi goal. So like, am I down points versus Gyökeres? Probably not. Like I'm probably up one, and then I'm a couple price rises. I think in the right direction. Like I think this week a lot of people are forced to make 2 free transfers to go towards Saka because they don't have triple Arsenal. Some people might just be doing the simple Gyok to Mateta and then go for Timber, which is basically your team, right? So obviously, like there's
Yeah.
people kind of chasing your team in that sense. But then I think for the people who are going Saka, you know, they're probably going to go through Q or Obi, and so they save 0.4. But I think I've already taken all those gains in terms of like price rises and falls in between. So and also like Krupi is still like somewhat alive as a pick compared to, let's say, I think you and Obi. So that's the only thing I can take as a positive from that. But I feel like the positive for me now is that I have the bank of roll transfers, hopefully coming out of next week where I roll again, and then other people, like like I said, are kind of moving into either something that's more akin to your structure or my structure, but there are a couple of
Hmm.
transfers down. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing that whilst you were speaking, I realized was not just the structure. I feel like uh, when we get closer to AFCON, there could be like some scope to make some very short-term moves.
Yep.
And I feel like these free transfers are going to probably help us out with that because I was thinking long-term, and the only players I feel like once, for example, whenever I do sell SAR, I'll probably need to get either Minte or there's two players I had earmarked. One of them was Minte. I think Minte will probably get either way once Palmer comes back. If Palmer comes back, I think Enzo probably loses a lot of his appeal due to lost pen share. So there's scope to go there. And also, I don't know about Semenyo as well. I don't want to lose the team
I
value.
know, right?
But at the same time, it's going to be really difficult to make that decision. I'm struggling to think who that player was last season, but I do remember people because I had a very bad season, so I didn't get much TV from players. But I definitely remember there was an occasion where someone rose a lot in price. Or maybe I was thinking of McAllister from a few seasons back for Brighton, who had like a lot of price rises, and then it became, you thought twice before actually wanting to sell him, which
Mm.
is obviously not a justification, but also how it comes back to bite you, lost team value. And this is just by observing other people, because you've always had higher than median team value from what I remember. Again, this is anecdotal. I could very well be wrong. You could just show me a team value which is less than 50% on review, and yeah, I could easily be in the mud.
Yeah. No. It's a weird one always, isn't it? It's just like I think in theory there should always be like I think the midfield position at least has enough kind of like alternative replacements where you don't feel so bad about, let's say, losing out on Semenyo. But then
Yeah,
I certainly think within other positions, like really like if you cut down from someone like Mateta, it's like okay, it's Thiago and Welbeck, and even Welbeck. I mean, I wouldn't say he's flimsy, but it's like he is physically flimsy. Like he's a good pick
yeah, yeah,
if the minutes hold up, right? And
yeah,
then with Thiago, you're still backing Brentford at the end of the day, and it's not like his underlyings have been like insane. I feel like if anything, he's probably overperformed a touch. So I don't think there's like a need to like necessarily overreact. Whereas with Semenyo, it's like, yeah, I guess you could lose. I mean, I bought at 7.4. You probably bought at 7.3 because you wildcarded earlier.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you're gonna sell. You're gonna lose like 0.5 team value, right? If you ever want to buy back. But do you
Yeah.
buy back? I don't. Maybe not. Um,
That is the question, right? And one of the reasons that could very well compel me to not buy him back would be if Kluivert could actually get some decent minutes, which is not the case. And I don't see how that's going to be the case anytime soon.
yep.
So until we see that, I just don't understand. Like, there's going to be always that implied penalty share. And until that exists, it just feels very
Yeah.
counterintuitive to sell him right now.
Yeah. It almost feels like in our position, it's like when you compare like is Cunha and Bemo better? I don't think so
Hmm.
necessarily. Foden on paper he is like, uh, but I don't know. Like it does it sound worthwhile? Especially since we own Semenya probably like 7.7 maybe. Is that your sell
Yeah,
value?
1.8 difference. Yeah,
7.8, something like that. So like
yeah,
that's already actually like still lower than a Foden, for example. Whereas
exactly,
for some people who bought
exactly.
recently, it's so easy to go out of Semenyo in and out
Yeah.
because there's no money tied up.
Mm.
And then I think also once again, if you think Sobo is a good midfield pick, then I think that kind of
Solskjaer was
takes
the other one. Yeah.
yes because so yeah like if I look at your team or even my team, that Enzo
Mm.
Semenyo spot could very well be like Sobo plus
Yeah.
Minte.
Yeah.
Um, but if you
Exactly.
don't have if you let's say don't hold Sobo with a lot of value or priority, then you don't need to sell Semenyo, right? Then only Enzo needs to go.
Hmm.
But yeah, like if you think that there are powerful enough mids at that sort of 6.5 million price, and there's like three of them, you can then just shift the funds somewhere else again. And it could even also be one of the forwards that we were talking about just now, like a Thiago or Welbeck later down the line. Like that money could be useful when Brentford's run of games are better. Right now they're not. Only 13 is good, and then 15 is like the real Brentford run. Whereas with Welbeck,
Yeah.
if you were willing to sell next week, I mean he's already got a good fixture, so something to think about for sure. But I almost feel like I'm
Mm.
going to ride out the good Semenyo games, and then it might even be the case that it's a decision like compounded by a free hit move, right? Because I think
Correct.
one of the free hits we were discussing, like even internally, was just when Bournemouth has some pretty poor games. Like I believe they
Hmm.
have um, poor games around 16, 17. At least
Okay.
one of those weeks is like especially poor. And if we were to free hit, let's say on, I think 15 is one of them too. Like 15 is versus Chelsea.
15 Chelsea at home,
Yeah,
16 United. United away, I'm not
United
going to
away.
classify that as, too
Because
difficult, but
they're a bit of your
yeah.
bogey team. Or even if you kind of took the opposite approach, like it was like 17, I think, specifically, is like a really good Bournemouth game. So if you take that off the
Yes.
calendar, is that suddenly, okay, I don't really care about Semenyo's run so much, or even Senesi's, and can I bin these players after the run ends? Like maybe we actually do that then. Like we still do it later. But I think eventually at some point this season, we'll probably sell Semenyo because I don't see him as like necessarily being a season keeper. But we'll see. I mean, there are mids that we I guess, will lose because of AFCON, and there are some that might just fall off the radar. And Semenyo's a 95-minute player, which is still rare at the end of the day, and you never feel super good about selling someone like that.
Yeah, uh, I'm on board with that.
All right, let's just jump into the season-long projected goals. This chart or graphic has Mateta in it. Um, you know, just so people understand. But he's scored a goal. Uh, Keep in mind though that this is I guess the updated numbers before the games, right, from last week, or am I wrong?
Friday.
Yeah,
So Friday before deadline. Yeah.
yeah. So this is before last week's deadline. So of course,
Yep.
Mateta, Gyökeres, even Haaland, for example, they've all scored goals. But I think this was the last best update that we had because, unfortunately, with so many midweek games now, we almost kind of have to take a little bit of a backwards look, or we record on the day of the deadline, which we don't unfortunately do. But I think what's interesting here is it's not looking particularly good um, for I don't know someone like, let's say, a João Pedro. Like, we probably saw a bit of a clawback before that Tottenham game, which is kind of consistent with a lot of our thoughts. Um, Welbeck here, however, looks pretty good. Thiago looks great. Mateta, Haaland expectedly look really good too. Saka didn't move too much, and I think he's just been blanking a lot recently. I'm sure actually coming off the Burnley
Mm.
game, this is a number that's going to go down. But then at the same time, he's got 2 weeks of pen share, so I wonder if actually he's going to stay flat. Like, I think that would be my guess. Um,
I was going to say Saka is someone where I feel like it's they're treating him maybe how they would have treated Salah last season.
yeah,
Before, obviously, like he started absolutely smashing it, but I'm thinking, or maybe not last season, but the season before, where you see numbers being consistent because the central expectation is still not changing. Like, okay, he
exactly.
might like get them in a bunch, but they still expect him to get like 12-ish goals in the season, which I think is a fair strategy for someone like Saka. Like, you can never anticipate that run of games where Madueke is injured like he is now, and easy fixtures like Sunderland away, Burnley away. Burnley is gone, but Sunderland is still to come. And you could easily have that run where he can still score a bunch of goals and end up at that same position.
Yeah.
So I feel for any Saka owner should actually feel vindicated that he's one of those rare players who markets trust so much that, or maybe you could phrase it in a slightly more objective way that markets estimated it correctly. That's what they feel. Like,
Mhm.
the overall consensus is that they priced him correctly in the beginning, so they don't want to overreact in either direction. So I feel like you said, maybe the 2 weeks of pen share, 100% pen share, might actually contribute to still being around 12.25. So it would be interesting to see, and obviously I'll post it either tomorrow or day after, and we can have a look at what the numbers say.
Yeah. I mean, anyone here that kind of strikes out, I guess, given the info that we got in Game Week 11. I kind of find it interesting that Mbomo didn't get a huge shift after scoring the 2 goals for Brighton, right? Um,
I noticed that as well, and that's the reason I included him because, and obviously because he's had like what, almost 2 million transfers in since
yeah.
maybe game week 8.
Yeah, it feels like he's
So
gotten 4 price rises in like
yeah,
2 weeks,
four
which
price
is
rises.
mad.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, off the back of that, you're absolutely right. And the other thing, obviously, is that both Gyökeres and Gordon, their numbers will drop off because obviously the markets will be suspended. So, I'm interested to see the impact on Voltemada because I feel like Gordon is that player who is absolutely going to contribute, whose absence is going to contribute to Newcastle being a much weaker attack. And so, what is the offset of getting pen share and then losing Gordon as a teammate? So that will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Based on what happened when Sar got injured, the impact on Mateta was nothing, but Mateta already had penalties, so it wasn't as severe.
True.
So this is going to be interesting when the markets do come back tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, the Newcastle team is. I mean, they probably dropped Stinker on West versus West Ham, which was shocking, right? Like, in the
True.
sense that this season, I feel like specifically, if I could call out two teams like Newcastle and Spurs have played awfully, awfully.
Dire football. Yeah.
Against expectations, and they also have Champions League
Yeah.
too. Now they're doing good in the Champions League, both those two teams, but it's just the actual Premier League level performances underlying is just are nowhere near kind of quality of team you're sort of expecting. And whilst we don't see some Tottenham players here, I think the reality is, Waltmad's got on some goals. Gordon probably has a lot of implied goals from pens, and it just isn't really clicking for Newcastle. So yeah, I don't know. It's not great, but Welbeck is here, and he's looking lively alongside Thiago. Um, and so I think there's a bit more depth in the forward position than uh, most people would like to think. I just think that Thiago's fixtures are so poor in the short term, where he makes so much sense on a game like Fan Team, where he's just absurdly mispriced. Um,
Absolutely.
but like in FPL, I still don't know if I'd be using a transfer for him. Like if I owned Gyökeres this week and I was looking for a transfer out, I just don't think I'd be buying into Thiago. As good as he is on paper, when I look at a graphic like this, like for me, he's like season long good.
Yeah.
It's just, do I buy him from a fixture perspective? Like probably not. Semenyo's still here. The main thing for him though is that he just doesn't really have a huge amount of sort of creative share. Like he's
Hmm.
not going to show up on a Premier League sort of assist projection list. So I think like going back to our discussion point about how valid a pick is Semenyo. Like Foden's not too far behind from him in terms of expected goals, and then obviously Semenyo just blanked in the previous match. But I think the main sort of point that we're going to hold is that Semenyo might not have the same routes towards like points in terms of like maybe kind of like that sort of chance creation type of bonus, and then also just in general like
Yeah.
the amount of assists. But he does take shots, and that also creates fantasy
He does.
assists.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I don't think there's a need to sort of like slam Semenyo. It's just if you really think there are high quality mids, he might be a sell. But for now, still looks like an absurdly good pick. Anyone else here that sort of strikes at you? I guess Gakpo, he could be someone who he's been sort of ebbing and flowing, right? Because I think he obviously hit a bit of a hot patch, like when he scored, versus Chelsea versus United.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
then again, we're still seeing that claw back in terms of minutes. So I just feel like the markets will just continue yo-yoing on him because like he can go hot, he can go cold, and his minutes can do the same too. So I don't have too much to say about him.
I will also include Ekitike next week.
Mm.
I should have included him. I realized that as I was
Right.
posting it, and I was just too lazy to go back and add him because I know that Isaac is out. So maybe
Yeah.
people
Sure.
who are free hitting or I don't know, like looking for temporary transfers want to look at someone like him.
Yeah.
I feel like
It is
that's
City
like a
though,
good.
right? And then there's the international break. You'd think that Isak
Yeah,
would
no, I
be.
meant last week.
No,
Last
that's
week.
true.
So
That's
last
true.
week would have been a better entry point than
Yeah.
this week. This week is a terrible entry point. I mean, obviously, no one is going to legislate for that. Uh, one thing I did notice, what you said, and I think it tracks with that, which is that the difference between the expectations of how many goals Foden is supposed to get between now and the end of the season and Semenyo can almost entirely be chalked off to just minutes.
Yeah.
I feel like. And that is not a great indicator, as in markets do think that he has massively overperformed. And of course, the numbers say the same thing as in the expected data. So it's going to be very interesting to see. We have seen in the past where players sort of do correct, but they correct in the sense that they start matching their overperformance with actual underlyings. So we'll have to wait and see. But that it seems very improbable that in a balance of probabilities, I would say that it's probably going to regress. But we'll see. They can get a bunch of penalties, and yeah, if we don't own him, we'll be down back in the millions, which I don't want to experience this season.
Mm. Has that actually changed your
If
approach
I
like
can.
last season? Generally.
Honestly, last season basically, it gave me this insane benchmark against which I almost never tilt. Like I could say things on the group chat, but I never actually feel it. Like I
Right.
say it just for effect, but
Yeah.
it
Okay.
just killed that sense of injustice that you would feel because like one season of getting absolutely pounded to like ungodly variance, negative variance would do that to you. And I feel like, okay, obviously, again, I was responsible for it. Like I could have easily corrected it at any time I wanted by just buying Salah, and there were a lot of chances to buy him. So it's not that. So yeah, because I have to make that clear, right? It's not just that. It's not all up to variance. There were things in my control, but uh, to answer your question, that just made me numb to any sort of variance now. It's
Right.
just I like to see less digits in my rank. That's all.
Yeah, but I guess has it changed in terms of like how you play around effective ownership potentially?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
would I would still okay. So one thing is like for example, when you captain Palmer and I did not captain Palmer in game week 3, I feel like that is something I should have done and I usually would do, but I still can't like pinpoint what reason it was exactly that made me not captain Palmer. I think it's just the overall like sentiment towards Palmer I had. It's nothing to do with like
No, that's fair.
effective ownership. I was just so sick of Palmer.
Yeah.
So I think it was just that. But again, like want to try to remove those biases as well because it's just unnecessary. And playing multiple fantasy formats does that to you. I was talking to Mo off stream one day and I told him the same thing that when you start playing multiple fantasy games, that is perfect because it basically balances out all your emotions.
Yep.
Because there's some game where whatever event has happened is benefiting you.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
yeah,
And I think it takes away from that sort of whole like that kind of bias that some people can have in terms of like how
yeah,
in control someone can be of like
yeah,
so many outcomes. So like I
absolutely.
remember reading a thread um, about how someone was just discussing like analytics ranks and just how if someone can sort of produce like 10 good seasons in a row, that's indicative that they've like they have some sort of intangible quality. When in reality, it's just like that is just 10 roles, you know, like out of
Absolutely.
millions of I guess
Yeah.
analytical seasons that you can go through and sets of tens. But like yeah, I think it
The good thing
changed.
is, I sorry, I was
No,
just
go
going to
on.
say a couple more seasons for you,
Mm.
and I think you would be in a position where you can actually say those things. If I say that right now, people will say that I'm just being bitter. But I feel like you've already had like three really good seasons. I just think you need this season maybe and another one, and I think you'll be in a position where no one could actually clap back. Whereas I feel like I say that to 11 all the time, by the way, and he admits it all the time with that b- the skill ceiling. And again, I don't want to go too much into it, but the skill ceiling is so low.
It is.
But I still admire some people how the
No,
way they play.
absolutely. Yeah, that's
So
true.
yeah, so those both those things can be equally true,
Yeah,
and
but
I
also
think
like
that's where
admiring
the
someone's
balance
play
is.
is not necessarily admiring someone's rank, if that makes sense, right? Which is
Yes,
kind of the point you're making.
yes,
So I just think like
yes,
it's interesting from my perspective. Obviously, as someone who's a YouTuber, like I do deal with an audience who probably don't see things in the same certain sense of light. So it's like I've almost felt like, do I need to change my approach so I can kind of like normalize my ranks around a certain range? But for the most part, like I'm always going to like go early on moves, go more comfortable around my decisions around minutes, and I think I'll just play like that until I stop playing really. But yeah, like in terms of decisions for captaincy, it's like I think one thing that I've actually decided more than like let's say like opting with free risk is I tend to now just back like more the market friendly picks. So if let's say Holland is like for with someone, I'll probably actually just pick whoever's actually rated a little bit higher by market. Not for any good reason, but just like I think last season, even like for most of the Palmer captaincies, I can just hold my hand up and say like I don't think it was anywhere close to Salah on market odds or even when you look at for example like implied goals, right? Like last season, you look at
hmm.
sharp odds. Um, was there a need to do that? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, at the same time, um, it could have just gone completely the opposite way, which is kind of how this season is panned out really for like if you actually like hold on to like objective beliefs about premiums and what they can do, etc., etc. But all right, second sort of goal, uh, sort of graphic after the tangent in terms of how we play. Um, Anyone interesting here? Obviously, Njai has scored. I'll also just mention Krupi. Krupi's numbers
Yes,
look exceptionally high. I feel like that almost is just like the market's just protecting themselves from the worst case scenario.
yep.
Because that is like that is a ludicrous sort of goal margin for someone with the kind of expectations we have
After
for
one goal,
Krupi.
by the way, after just one goal, that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have never seen that happen. So that's yeah,
They were like, "Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
we've read all the ball striking threads on football Twitter, and
yeah.
we just have to pay respects to them." Um, Anyone interesting, I guess, outside of those two?
Uh, I mean, the second table is always a little
It
less,
is, but also like I
I
think
guess,
like
interesting.
the movements like people don't realize how significant they
Yeah.
are. It's like I guess 0.25 as a movement is quite significant for someone living in this territory compared to
Yes.
a Holland, for
So
example.
Reinders, right?
Yeah.
Reinders is now definitely below his preseason expectations,
Mm, yep.
and I feel like this is finally acknowledgement from markets that okay, fine, this the minutes are bad now, and whatever underlines they thought he would get off the back of the Wolves game, not underlines, but sorry, I should say actual returns he would get, they were way off base with that. So I don't know how much these Champions League games impact these projections. I feel like they should to some degree, but again, I feel like Premier League teams are just not taking Champions League opponents seriously, and I get that to a certain extent. Like for example, I was
Yep.
looking at Spurs' opponents until now. They haven't played a single pot two or pot one. They've played one pot two opponent, but it was Villarreal. I mean,
Well,
come
yeah,
on.
it was not
And
notorious that Spurs had a great run of games.
exactly, and
Yeah.
they haven't played a single pot one opponent yet, and their pot one opponents are the PSG and Dortmund. So eh, I feel like in this case, markets would be justified to just sort of ignore those games and focus only on the Premier League. But I think for like maybe once we get to knockout stages, maybe we'll start seeing even more impact because first of all we'll have more of a sample size from Champions League, and maybe there's a scope for someone like I'm trying to think like who would be a good candidate. I think Foden is the one person I was thinking of. Like off the back of his brace today, would we expect some boost? I guess we'll find out tomorrow, but I'm interested to see if that happens.
Yeah, I actually almost think that there would be. Um,
And
but
and Reinders for assists as well because Reinders got 2 assists today. So again, equally interested to see what would happen off the back of that.
yeah, the assist being he passed it to Foden, who kind of did quite quite a significant amount of the job after that. But yeah, it's interesting to see a lot of the center backs here and just sort of like how to chart them. Because obviously this is like pre-Gabriel assist, right? But Gabriel
Yeah,
is like top by a fair margin. Van de Ven, this is post his 2 goals, and he's still sort of behind Van Dijk for the rest of the season.
yeah,
But then ahead of some of the other sort of more interesting attacking picks that some people like to tout up, like for example a Timber, and then equally other set piece threats like potentially Lacroix. Not sure if Keane is higher than Tarkovsky, but Tarkovsky always has some implied threat, probably just not the most amount of set piece threat. So yeah, um, I
again,
think
the second page is more important,
yeah,
like you said, is primarily for those cheap midfielders.
yep,
So the whole point of this page is for us to maybe take stock of which midfielder we want to invest into long term, especially whenever we do sell Enzo or Semenyo or in my case Ismail Assar. And I feel like this would be the ideal, uh, let's say, stopping point to assess. And right now, you can see like Minte, uh, SARS, Soboslai. It is very little to separate all of these players right now, and Paqueta even. So it will be interesting to see as we go into, let's say, the Christmas, the busy schedule, how things are going to pan out.
yeah. I actually forgot to mention that both of us are actually on green arrows. I just realized that I've still
Oh,
kept us on red arrows.
that's fine.
But yeah,
That's
just
fine.
wanted
As
to
long as the
flex that
numbers keep
we're
moving.
doing okay in FPL for
Yes.
once.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, in terms of assists, um, now what happened over the weekend? I guess Rice he didn't get an assist, he got a goal. But actually, one thing we could probably do in the future is just probably chart the goals from the the defensive mids, just to kind of add a little bit of flavor to the discussion of the whole defensive mids like taking over the world type of thing.
Oh,
Um, yeah, because
I like
I
that
mean
idea.
you know how the season has gone. It's basically like
Yes.
none of the defensive mids have changed like the way that they play in terms of underlyings. Like most of the attackers have pretty consistent underlyings. Some are undershooting like Saka, but some are
Yeah.
overcooking like Enzo and even Sar to an extent, just with a smaller sample size. But most of the goals have still come from a lot of the defensive mids, and yeah, I think Rob T sort of shared the graphic where if you take the defcons out, still it's the DMs leading the game, but actually it's just still because of outcomes, really, not because we think our expectations on football have changed and only DMs score goals now.
No,
Um,
no, no. It's because Gravenberg was told this season that he needs
but
to score more goals.
oh, true, yeah,
That's
yeah, that's actually a good
that's
point
the
because I remember there was a Marco Silva presser where instead of someone asking about
yes,
Joachim Anderson, they asked whether Sander Berg needs to
absolutely.
add goals to his game. So
Oh yeah.
thank you
Okay.
to
Yeah. Sorry.
journalists
Thank you for
for kind of catching on to this trend of DM scoring goals or midfielders rather. But Yeah. What do you think about assists? Anything interesting? Any big shifts that we can kind of take into account post Game Week 10?
Again, Bruno assisted a goal. I don't think they're going to react too much because that is the expectation. He is still near
Yeah,
the top because
that's his job.
they still expect him to have, yeah, exactly, one of the highest assist count. Like I think you pointed out in the group chat, like when Mbumo leaves, what the situation is going to be,
Mm,
and it's going to be interesting. It depends how much Luke Shaw plays,
that's a
how
good point.
much
Yeah.
Bruno takes from the other side. I feel like Bruno's set pieces from his strong side are actually good,
Yeah.
as in they do feel like they have some expected assist and an expected threat. But I feel like whenever he does take those away swinging corners, it just doesn't feel the same. I mean, obviously the stats could off the back of like a couple of seasons. I feel like this is now the perfect balance where a left footer is taking from the left. How do we call left and right side? Is it facing the goal or is it facing away from the goal?
You mean in swing versus out swing?
No, no, like the right corner.
Yeah.
Is it the right
Oh,
corner as an attacker's perspective or is it like looking from the defender's perspective?
I think from
I
the
don't know. Just
attacker's
something
perspective.
weird.
So like
I
Bruno
think so. You're right.
takes the
Yeah,
left hand side corners, right?
the left side corner. Correct. Yeah, that's all I
Well,
wanted to
I don't know.
confirm.
I could
Okay.
be wrong. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
Um, but
Okay. Never
it's
mind. That was a weird thing. Yeah.
it's interesting to see that Saka's really high up here, right? And I think if you actually
Yeah.
contextualize almost, of course Salah's going to go towards AFCON, but I think like even on goals and assists, it's like he's not too far away from Salah really.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and and I think people have been egging on Saka a lot. Um, or maybe it's actually because we need to disrespect Mo a little bit more. I don't know, but
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I think Saka still looks very enticing as a pick, just from that. I will say it is a bit frustrating to see how good Rice is on set pieces, and I think maybe how Saka's potentially regressed on them because I'm almost seeing him being involved in these routines where he's like doing the initial pass to a 5 pass
The
build up before
flick on.
before a
Yeah.
cross, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
that's not EV producing there, Saka. Can you
Yeah.
stop? Um, whereas like maybe like 2 seasons, like I think even last season at the start of the season, he was just absolutely caking it in with like assists. Obviously, there's like
Oh,
open play value too, but
those corners, right? No, but the corners I remember, like they were right on top of the goalkeeper
near
from both
posts,
sides.
right?
Like Rice
Yeah,
swinging in from that
yeah,
side,
yeah.
yeah, and Saka swinging from this side. And I felt like that was very threatening, but I think this is even more potent because it's like people just can't get a hold of Gabriel. So basically, he just runs free and then he passes it back into the box, which is crazy to me how that still continues to happen. But I mean, that does dent his appeal slightly, but I'm not going to take it into
No, but
consideration
I
too much.
mean like even just he does the layoff, like he just does a layoff sometimes
He does,
instead
he
of
does. Yeah, yeah. So
like a
it's a
direct,
pre-assist. Could be a
yeah.
pre-assist. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, or even like
My favorite
yeah,
style of auto.
yeah. But I mean, Rice feels a little bit low in terms of assists. It feels like. Um,
Yeah, yeah. He
so
is definitely like the assist even in the Champions League game yesterday. It's just it's consistent, and that's what we are
it
looking
is.
for, right? It's
Well,
consistently being the same,
yeah.
or rather producing the same sort of outcome.
And Momente's gotten some assists, in quotation marks. I don't think like they were amazing assists if anyone actually watched the game, but he did get
Yeah,
assists all the same. And I think that's the main thing with Minte is he is also another sort of 90-95 minute player, and I think that's really where most of the value is coming from. Like if anything, the only reason why he was subbed early versus Leeds is because they had a complete game state victory. Like there was nothing to that game. But he just looks like an exceptional pick. Um, and you see like far clear of anyone like here that actually has any tangible sort of goal threat. Like Damsgaard, for example, Grealish probably much worse in terms of goal threat. Um, um, and I mean,
I mean, Soboslai I was trying to find out if
he's
he did get
interesting.
an assist. I forgot he got an assist against Brentford. So
Yeah,
basically, that's why his number went from 5.5 to 6. But again, we all want to buy Soboslai for various reasons. I feel like our expectations with his assist are already tempered. So I'm not too concerned about that. It's just what is the penalty share, right? And that's we'll obviously come to it when we get closer to AFCON. But it's just interesting to see. What penalty share we end up giving him because that might make or break buying Soboslai.
yeah. Um, I think the only thing I'd probably add, sorry, is I mean, Gibbs White could probably make some sort of return. The problem is I feel like Nottingham Forest were just vastly mispriced this season, and so Igor Jesus is like the only reasonable pick. Where if he suddenly gets serious minutes, would actually be like
Yeah.
a bit of a cheat code for FPL. But yeah, I don't know. The assist list is always like a list of players I think I would actually pick up in draft. Because you're more than likely gonna find them in waivers than like players that are serious. And it's so sad that we see Bowen here, right? As opposed to like on the goals list. But that second page of assists, um, I mean, Reiner's still reasonably consistent, as you kind of said. That could tick up, and it feels like probably that's where he's gonna get his returns this season, more so than goals. What do you think about? I guess the question: Have you noticed? Yeah, I feel like Enzo might be someone who. Do you think he's dropping because he's not getting assists, or because like the set piece share is kind of changing with someone like Reece James?
So for assist, I feel like it's both. For goals, I think it's just outcome bias because he hasn't scored in ages. So, but if even if you check the, I forgot to mention that his goals are going down at a very minor steady rate,
Right.
which again points to the fact that because he has penalty share and he plays for Chelsea and his minutes are like almost nailed on, it feels like markets don't want to overreact to him as well. But on the assist front, I think there's more room for that sort of adjustment because, like you said, if he's not on too many set pieces, you can just basically take away all that share and adjust according to that. So I think that is a fair reflection of his assist potential, I guess.
Yeah. I'm kind of shocked that NJ is so low, but then maybe I don't know. That's a reflection of the strikers that they have in that team. At the same time, we talked about
Also, I,
Semenyo being quite low.
no, I was going to say, I don't know. So this is one of the modeling questions, right? Data
Hmm.
modeling questions. That how do you account for fantasy assists of uh,
Yeah.
shots saved, and obviously those random uh, cross assists that you get now, or random pass assists you get now.
Right.
And the second part obviously is random. We absolutely cannot account for that. Or maybe you can use XA to maybe make some certain assumptions that okay, your pass value is consistently high, so maybe there's more of a chance that you will create those situations. But for short rebounds, I feel like maybe there is a better way to price it. I'm surprised markets don't have fantasy assists, by the way. I feel like it's high time they should probably have that. It's maybe they are scared that they don't know how to price them correctly.
Now that fantasy
Maybe that's
assists are a lot more objective. No, I'm joking. Um, no, but
yeah, yeah,
no, but I
yeah,
think I only asked this because I think NJ this season it seems like he's had a small uptick in terms of XAG. Um,
yeah.
but I feel like sometimes that does happen because if I was to think about that Everton team last season, they were just honestly awful. Um, but now it's like they have good players playing alongside him, so it's like he can almost play football um,
Hmm.
instead of sort of being shackled entirely.
Yeah.
Like, and to be fair, I think it's a good reflection that his goal in the weekend was literally him doing a
Oh
solo
my God.
triple versus like 6, 7 people. So it is still quite tough for Ajay to actually get returns reasonably. But yeah. Uh, anyone here that catches your eye?
No, I think I mean Paqueta is one I've been consistently including in these just to see where
Hmm.
he ends up because I feel like
True.
I'm struggling with Paqueta. Like, have my preseason expectations been wrong because of the penalties, or is it just his role keeps shifting because he was playing like a number 9 and now he's back to playing number 10 because Callum Wilson started last game week. So he's all over the place right now, and I feel like a player like that at the end of the season could very well end up being close to whatever was the expectation.
Yep.
So I'm very curious to see where Paqueta ends up, especially like because he has Burnley this week. Um, yeah, I think like if he's going to play number 10, then defensive contributions are back on the menu, and we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah. Fair. All right. One thing I wanted to discuss was actually just the source of DefCon this season. So user PJM8786 actually did a study on this. Do you want to kind of just break down what he's done and sort of what the outcome of that is?
Yes, but I have one request, which is that I want you to break down your counter to this the way
Right.
you
Okay.
said it to me, because I feel like it was a very succinct argument. It's
Yeah.
just that I feel like people need to. I was just like thinking if we had that exact discussion live, that would have been so good because it would have been genuine. But I also feel like maybe there's
Oh
like
no, that's fair.
some
Yeah,
things that you think through. So it's like it's better if you once when talk it through and then we have that discussion again.
that's true.
So okay, yeah, tremendously long preface, but coming to the post. So what this the poster has done is he's tried to use defensive contributions for defenders, and he has tried to see what the correlation is between three things rather, which is one is individual skill factor, which is the underlying defensive contributions per 90. The second is what is the correlation with the team, or rather team defensive contributions, and then what is the correlation with the opposition defensive contributions. And there's something which is also called as random noise, and there's a way you can get to the calling something random noise, which is that you basically figure out what the factors are that you want to work with, and then whatever is left is random noise.
Yeah,
It could not be random noise, by the way. So I feel like maybe a breakdown of that is needed, like what criteria he used overall, like how many parameters did he do the correlation study with. And let's say there were like 15 parameters, it could be that he's counting these three because these three were the most dominant, and then everything else is part of random noise. So again, a lot of caveats in this, but the only reason we thought it was worthy discussing is just interesting to see where this ends up later in the season, because this is the first season we are trying to predict defensive contributions, and we want to understand which factors drive it the most. Is it just individual player skill? Is it team tactics that basically, like, some teams are more driven towards the defensive contribution, some teams aren't? And then the third is what is the opposition's tactics? This tactics being a very, I'm using it very loosely. It's just like one aspect of the tactics. So that's the explanation of what this person has tried to do. And Pearson correlation coefficient is actually like a very good statistical way of doing it. So uh, again, this is just something I thought is interesting, and I wanted Fran's perspective anyway, and I think he had really good points. So please, Fran.
Okay, one thing I'll say is I haven't read the thread on Reddit, right? So I think you
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of you shared the screenshot with me. I thought it'd be uh, good to talk about, but then I had some questions first before I shared it. But we're gonna have it live anyways. I guess obviously, just like you said, would love to know what random noise is, so that I can even think about what the impact of that is in terms of like the rest of the kind of spread, right? But I think to almost start with, I think we completely agree and have always agreed that it is always individual skill, right? Like even when we're kind of looking at last season and some of the defcons between defenders within respective teams, you can see gigantic gaps between players, and it is more than likely always going to have been reflective of individual skill. Like I think, um, what was a good example last season? I think like if you looked at Huijsen and Senesi and then compared to let's say Zabarni last season, it's a good reflection of just like how players play. I think more so than like Bournemouth, which is a team that we tend to look at as really good for CBIT, right? Because you've seen it even in recent games. Like Truffet has, um, got into DefCon. Diakite has got into DefCon. I feel like so that for me is like I think the issue that I took a little bit where we're saying 5% is due to team factor, but I would almost like to see a study of like all the best DefConners in a game and like correlate that against like team DefCon just to kind of see like am I yapping or like I don't know is a portion of let's say this 59% of random noise a portion of 31% due to individual skills actually just like team setups like even if it comes back to like let's say I don't know just like footballing things like that we call for individual skill. Like if you're the last man, sometimes like in certain circumstances, like you might be someone who's like more prone to clearing the ball. If
Hmm.
if you're tasked with like I don't know, being let's say the primary outlet when the goalkeeper like passes the ball and someone presses on you, like maybe you're also more prone to clearing the ball. So I feel like this like there's ways that you can set up a certain player so that individually it looks like they're doing something and it's their individual skill, but it's also like the way that the team is set up. But I think the most important point is I think yeah we probably overrate this whole discussion about opponents in terms of like you're
Hmm.
playing X team you know, you're gonna get def cons today. I think that's complete. I think I've always thought that that was complete waffle. I've always thought it like your own respective team drives your def con results, and you shouldn't care about the rest.
Hmm.
Because it's also like I don't know. I mean, like you can actually just watch a match sometimes, and it's like you like if you look at Liverpool versus Aston Villa, and sure, like that's like maybe a very specific circumstance, but like Aston Villa did not play long ball whatsoever. Did Virgil head the ball
Yeah,
like thousands of
exactly.
times? No,
Hmm.
right? So like to an extent, like someone's gonna be like, okay, but isn't that just an opponent factor? But that's a very specific circumstance. I feel like, and then obviously there's so much noise that comes through with that. More often than not, it's yeah for me like individual role first, but I think individual role is just a part of a team factor. And then I almost look at a team like Palace and I just think they have like what I think three of their center backs. Oh, sorry, I think Guecki's on 9. I think Richards is on 10.7 and Lacroix's on like 11.3 DEFCON per 90. I think
Yeah.
you'd struggle to find any other team in the league that has like numbers close to that. So my only thinking at times like that is like how else do I explain it other than it can't be like they've just picked up like defenders who just are all individually skilled. Like there must be some sort of team impact. But yeah, I'd love to see like as I said that kind of study of um, your best DEFCONers and then compare it to the team DEFCON. Just see like whether it's like somewhat correlated. But another tricky thing too is I mean we're only looking at clearances, blocked shots, interceptions, and tackles, right? Um, so recoveries aren't a part of this, and we're just looking purely at defenders.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
I feel like recoveries could very well muddy the waters even more
it
because
definitely would, yeah. Which is sort of my initial
first
question
of
before I
all,
jumped
yeah,
into
yeah,
this
yeah.
with
And
you.
and that was a great question, by the way, because the first thing is to understand what data you're working with, and if you're working with recoveries as well, I feel like it's getting more and more subjective
It is.
because what's a recovery versus what's a clearance? Like in a sense of, okay, you can very well recover the ball, and as you're recovering, you could clear it, right? So I don't know if they count it every single time as a recovery and a clearance, or
100%.
sometimes it's
There
just a
must be
clearance.
huge error bars with this.
So exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So if, because it's limited only to C-bit, I feel like there's at least some sense in going through this. Also because it's limited to one position, right? And so again, you try to reduce as much noise as you can with these parameters. But to your point, I 100% agree. Like for example, the Virgil point you discussed right now against Aston Villa, it's fine. Like Aston Villa didn't play long balls, but at the same time, you could also argue it like it's a chicken and egg situation. You could argue the other way, saying Liverpool set up in a way where Aston Villa didn't play long balls,
yeah,
and so you come back to the team for which that player plays. So I think you are right that the players' baselines are a function of the team that they play for. But again, the whole point of bringing this up, and Connor in the chat is already saying that people on that subreddit are, um, yeah, it's not the best subreddit. But I
yeah.
feel like again,
But
this is
someone,
not
yeah,
to
this is just an individual,
ignore.
right? And he's probably done something
Eh,
actually
eh,
that's worthwhile. But I think my point to
yeah,
you
the
also
human one,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
because I remember we were charting sort of those kind of historic baselines of players, like going past multiple
yeah,
seasons. And I think the issue that I have with that is like when we say that 31% is due to individual skill
eh,
factor, I feel like
yeah,
what we want to do going forwards is like our question is going to be like, so what individual skill sort of sample are you looking at? Like are you going to take someone like for example like Stack who's played like CBDM etc. and say that that's like
yeah,
part of his like tool set, or are you just going to be realistic and just say like he's not going to express any individual skill if he's going to play like left center mid compared to if he's playing like CB/DM. And then at the same time I just think how like for example like Diouf, right? Diouf was like playing left wing potentially even like for half his season for his previous team. His numbers this year actually look pretty reasonable, right? He's not like the guy who was like at the bottom left corner of the chart for DefCon, um,
correct.
right? So that's all I was trying to say. Where it's like to me that's like so reflective of just like a role circumstance, and potentially actually yeah, I should just differentiate by role sometimes, but that's kind of just the team thing, isn't it? So
No, 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 absolutely. And also, just to clarify, he's only done this study
for
for
this
this
season,
season,
yeah,
so automatically the sample size is low. But
true,
the good thing is, these are not career numbers, right? So these are the numbers from this season. So we can be fairly confident that the role is pretty consistent.
Yeah.
It to one thing I will revisit this post because I did read it, but I don't remember every single thing he's mentioned. I don't remember if he's done this study only for 90-minute players, because
Mm.
one of the things I do think plays a huge role is how many minutes a player ends up playing.
Yep.
Because the thing you mentioned about like last man being last man, and that majorly boosting your clearances and interceptions and tackles, is that if you are there on the pitch for like the final, let's say 5, 10, 15 minutes, and especially if you are that sort of counter-attacking team where okay, we are just going to sit back and hoof balls up the field, or if it's going to be like okay, no, we're going to still keep pressing because we are one of those teams who like just likes to entertain, and if the ball goes back, then there's your last man has to, you know, sweep up everything. So it's going to be interesting to see the outcome of this, and I would like to revisit this at the end of the season, or maybe close to the end of the season, because I feel like that's a point where at least we'll have a lot of data points, and we can then actually discuss if there's any if there's any way for us to get better at predicting defensive contributions for players. Because obviously we have a huge sample size from past seasons, but I mean, the data gathering is the problem, right? I think because there's incentive for people to now gather data to exactly mirror what the point system is. I think there's going to be a lot better data that we can probably have, and we can use that to maybe make some changes to our assumptions.
Yeah, that's fair. I was thinking about exactly what you said because I was trying to think about, okay, so what happens with like all those games in the start of the season where Konate was hitting these early substitutions?
Yeah,
Like it
yeah,
almost works inversely towards his team factor, right? Because
yeah,
the team totals keep
absolutely.
going up. He hit, yeah, yeah, and then that's an interesting point. All right, let's have a look at captaincy, which is actually I think the first week in a while where we've had an interesting captaincy discussion. Not that last week wasn't interesting
Yes.
because I think last week was worthwhile. But I think even if I look back to last week, I think there was still uncertainty. Like if I looked at Saka, like he was close to Holland, absolutely. But then I'd also have to be 100% certain that he has penalty share. And if I'm not, then that's really like that's real value taken away from Saka that you're never going to get back if he doesn't take a penalty. Whereas Holland always takes penalties. If Pep hasn't lost his head and he hasn't already deposed Marmoush from the pecking order as he should. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. In this week, though, you've got Gyökeres out, so Saka is on pens. And then I think if you have reasonable belief that Enzo's on pens, like he's close. The other two I've actually added because, so many people are interested now in Gabriel captaincies, even though it didn't go quite as well as I think people expected post the outcome for Gabriel last week. And then Bruno is there for posterity's sake. What do you
Still
think
a
about
1 point
captaincy?
loss, right?
Yeah,
Last
one
week.
point loss. Yeah, just 1 point loss.
Yeah, I think people lost a lot more expected value, but I mean, obviously, if you care about that sort of thing, then
You don't Gabriel cap. Okay. Um,
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, this week is interesting in that if we had even the slightest indication that Holland could get some reduced minutes, there was certainly a
mm,
chance, but
yeah.
it's not there. He got subbed 86 at 86 minutes
I,
today for
I
Marmoush,
I have
and
to say it goes back to so many of the discussions that we've had previously where it's like he already did something. Like if you want to make this argument, look at a game like Burnley this season where he played up until the end of the game because he didn't score a goal, and I think every manager knows that Haaland wants to score a goal before he comes off, and he stayed up until the absolute end, even though the game was pretty much won. Whereas obviously,
absolutely.
like in a game like Bournemouth and a game like Dortmund today, he got subbed off at 82, 86, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like that is so hindsighty, and that for me is like okay, like that's gonna add up to someone's season review. Like okay, well done if you've actually captained someone, but like I think don't take the credit for Saka playing 95 minutes and Haaland not playing 95 minutes
Hmm.
because that's not really how, in my opinion, I view how captaincies are played. Like you already know you're rolling the dice, but it's like I don't think you could be like yeah I won on X Men's there, because we all know how like game state works. Um,
Yeah.
but this week, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you don't own Saka, right? So is it between Enzo and Holland for you?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I mentioned Enzo. I mean, obviously, I would prefer Saka if I owned all three of them over Enzo. But because I don't, I think it's very easy. If Holland had any indication, there is no indication. So I don't think I'm going to even consider captaincy. of this seems like a bad week to roll the dice. It's not even roll the dice, right? I mean, Holland is still top. It's not like Holland is
No, he's still top.
it's
You're right. Yeah.
close, but he's still top. So I mean, I think there's no reason for you and I to consider that. There are weeks, like I said, like I do regret not captaining Palmer in Game Week 3, even though it turned out that he didn't even show. So people got Salah vice captain. But I feel like that was something that I would have done usually, and I probably should still do. But in this case, it's not even that. Like it's nowhere close to that. So I think this week is very clear. And for Gabriel, I mean, fine. People want to, if they have double Arsenal, they want triple Arsenal defense, whatever it is. I just don't feel like it's very simple for me. Like it's about the distribution and the distribution of outcomes for a forward. I would always back that, even though the expected value would be like, for example, let's say Gabriel and Holland at similar EV, the distribution is so different that I would always back Holland in that case.
I agree with you on that. But then I think that then, to my extent, it's like I have a free risk captaincy here. I think with Saka,
You do.
like it
You
is
do. Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
negligible difference.
It is. It
So
is.
it just comes down to like
Are you
just
going
yeah.
for it though? Because I was going to ask you that that's the more interesting part.
I'm not because I think like once again it's like the markets are just pro Holland. Holland's just doing crazy stuff. Oh, like why I would
Just feel
bother?
something. While you were talking about like market odds, I had a brief look at what is like the user base for SpreadX,
Yep.
and I found like something that said 30,000
Mhm.
users,
Yeah.
which doesn't seem that far off from what I was expecting. But then there are like more than 10 million people that play FPL.
True.
So if you want to go by wisdom of the crowd, obviously you have to weigh the wisdom. But I mean, there are far more people that play FPL than there are that use SpreadX. So I know that even if you look at like any of the other betting markets, like even I'm not going to name them, but you know what they are. So even for them, obviously Holland would be clear on expected value. So it is not just 30,000, but it's just interesting to me that the SpreadX user base is pretty low in comparison to what it could be.
Yeah. Do you roughly know like how many users of Pinnacle there are?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up because Pinnacle is actually the most popular, I think, now for
Yeah.
sharp market.
Oh, I mean, it's a curious one, but yeah, I don't know. I just I don't even know if I have it in me. I might do it though. I think it is tempting at times, and I think there's no reason not to do it now. As you said,
Oh,
like,
whoa. Okay. Yeah, I have to hold my hands up. Absolutely. It's like 5 million in 2017.
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
That's just,
but
it's like almost 8 years ago.
I'll need to monitor. Yeah, I'll just need to monitor playing big Bukayo Saka, but I don't know. I feel like Sunderland have been pretty impressive, and I almost think from a modeling perspective, right? It's like Sunderland's probably a team that's like still quite underrated by like team strength models. And I know markets are probably a little bit ahead in that in terms of like comparing to Sunderland, um, who they probably rate a bit higher. But it's like little things like that just make me think, okay, whatever, let's just go Holland. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I don't know. I mean, even that Chelsea performance that they put in was like just solid. But then maybe you can also just say it's just Chelsea. Um,
No, another thing I would point out is, let's say this was last season's Liverpool, right?
yeah,
I'm pretty sure you would have considered captaining Saka much more.
100%.
But
That's the thing too.
the fact
You
is,
know,
it's both, right? It's Sunderland being maybe slightly better than what models say,
yeah,
and it's Liverpool definitely being worse than what models said at the start of the season.
yeah,
So it's like a compounded effect. So I feel like you're absolutely spot on. Like intuitively, I would back you in
yeah.
captaining Holland over
But
Saka.
then it's also just like, oh, are Liverpool back after 2 games? And to an extent too, it's
Well,
like, do Holland play like sorry, do City play like in a way that everyone thinks like Liverpool can't play football against, right? It's like they don't play long ball. Like Donnarumma wishes he could
correct.
get the ball
Oh
past the
my God.
halfway field
Yeah.
like accurately. You know, great mistake by the weekend on the weekend as well for such a strong goalkeeper. But anyways, that is our discussion on captains. I will consider Saka until the end. Um, Anything interesting this week in terms of X-Men's? I don't have anything to bring to the table in terms. I just think Sobo is interesting. Like I think from a sort of solving perspective, I think like consider
Yeah.
that. I think even Welbeck, you have to kind of consider him. Like to an extent, Welbeck and James, these are two players that are highly injured, susceptible to injuries. But I mean, at some point, you have to consider like how real they are, right? Because they're just pounding minutes.
I don't know. Maybe you're maybe right about James because with
Yeah,
James, I've been very skeptical. Like
no, it's fair.
there will be that inevitable week where it's not going to work out. But
Well,
for
I
example, he
remember in
played
the
in
in the
fantasy
Club World
today.
Cup, I was waiting for him to play, and he was warming up, and suddenly he was not
Exactly.
ready to play in the semifinals. So I was like, okay,
Exactly.
cool, that's Reece James for you.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. So he played today against Karabakh, I think. So I feel like there's a reasonable chance he might not even play against Wolves,
it's possible, yeah, and,
given
and
that
and it
Wolves
has
are
been done before. To be
absolutely.
fair, like they can just play
Yeah,
Gusto,
Kukurea was benched against Brentford, right? So it
yeah,
has been done before.
and James too. I
So
think, yeah,
and James, yeah, you're right. So I just feel like it's unnecessary in terms of those minutes risk, given that Champions League is also
yeah,
fairly competitive for Chelsea.
yep.
But
And they dropped points
the
today, so going
underlying point,
forwards, you make a good point.
exactly,
They'll
in
they'll, they'll need to
more
actually
and more,
play stronger. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, exactly that. And with Welbeck, I'm definitely, I'm glad we discussed him last week. Okay, it's nothing groundbreaking. He had already scored a ton of goals before we started talking about him, but at least we talked about him before he scored another goal.
sure.
So I feel like the age factor is the only thing I would consider, and you can easily take care of that by strongly decaying his minutes in the future. But I still feel like if you have a lot of free transfers, that's like you could go for him easily because the expected value is always there with him.
Yeah, I mean, like he's almost like I think like immediately clear of like Jao Pedro or honestly even like Thiago, I would say.
His goal share must be crazy, right? What was the goal share in the thing I sent you? One second. You don't need to open it up. Let me quickly
No,
check.
I can definitely just get that up.
Yeah, because I
Um,
feel like his goal share has to be more than.
34%. That's massive. Yeah,
See, yeah, exactly. So I feel like
higher than
whatever
Thiago's.
projections Brighton have, they will obviously the majority is going to Welbeck anyway. And this is with
Oh,
the
yeah.
obscurity
Good point.
around penalties.
Good point. Yeah.
If we knew that he took penalties, I'm pretty sure it's going to go up even more. Because again,
True.
like you said last week, IRE does play a lot of minutes, and it's not going to be easy to prescribe any penalty share to him or ascribe any penalty share to him. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll have to just monitor that situation going forwards. I mean, would you ever go Welbeck? Next week would be the week, right? Game 12.
It's a break, so there's no way.
Yeah. I mean,
What would you?
I, I mean, in theory, I could do Haaland to Welbeck, Salah in. But I am not planning to do that.
I'm glad you prefaced it by saying in theory because basically it could mean nothing. So
it
I'm
really
glad you said
it really it's meaningless to me, but I'm sure like I think that's
that.
like it's on paper an interesting move. It's just like, do I really believe all the sources there with Salah? Not really. But maybe
Yeah,
there's a more interesting Welbeck move for me down the line. It's just the problem always is like even though some forwards are interesting from time to time, like Thiago and Welbeck, and right now Mateta is great at just like holding a spot in our team down because most of the time we want to play 3-5-2, 3-4-4-2 probably I'd say this season more so than
Hmm.
3-5-2. But yeah, like I mean, right now, if you think Sobo and Minte and Sar are real, that's 3 minutes, and then everyone probably has like Semenyo, Bruno, and some other guy. And because I have Saka now, I actually have like almost more room to go for midfielders. So it's something
True.
I'm considering, I guess, for sure. But yeah, for now, I think I'm pretty relaxed, and I'm hoping Welbeck gets injured soon, so that I don't have to think about him.
Yeah, so I'm assuming you're planning on rolling as well this week?
Yeah, definitely. Are
Yeah.
you? Is this your first role in a
Uh,
while, or
this season?
no? No,
No,
not
no,
this
no.
season.
I've gone up to like three free transfers, but yeah, I mean, uh, I've been like alternating. So one game week I would roll, then I would spend two free transfers, roll
Okay.
two free transfers. So
So you're rolling
yeah,
to 3 next week?
I don't know when I'm spending my next free transfer, honestly. I
Fair.
because this team that I have now, I mean,
It's
obviously,
too good, is
touch
it?
wood, no. I wish I could say that, but obviously not. I just feel like the classic situation of does Timber play is probably going to force my hand either way. Uh, just I just hope I have built up enough free transfers by that point, so I could make a decision at that point.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, as I said, I think like if I'm not happy with Saka for whatever reason, which is unlikely, I guess there's room to go out of there. Otherwise, I think my most recent move is going to be something like Enzo to maintain Gaming 13 and probably just bypass the free at 13 anyways, right? Because if I'm not going to keep Enzo and I don't want to keep Enzo,
Yes.
there's no real needs of
Yeah.
free at 13 anyways. So that's kind of how I feel about
Absolutely
things.
not. Okay,
Um,
one last thing. I actually forgot. I wanted to talk to you about free hit on the pod,
oh right,
which is that do we, from next week onwards, I was thinking if we should just start including free hit drafts every week,
yeah,
because I feel like we should just be mentally prepared to free hit every single week we go into the deadline, given that it's just going to be an impromptu free hit,
yeah.
like off the back of, let's say, some injury or some unavailability or something like that.
Yep, agreed. 100%. I
Yeah.
almost think, yeah, I almost run solves. I have not run a solve with free hit in forever. Um,
Yeah.
because
Same.
it's just like like logically speaking, like there's just you just know you're just running like huge variance, just hoping for the best. And sorry if you can hear the dog in the background. I guess maybe that's why Hassan does what he does. I'm joking. But um, yeah, I don't know. Like I think free hit wise, I'm now probably just thinking about postponing it to like post Afcon, just because, um, I have the 5 free transfers. Then I have extreme security, and I don't know. I'll probably there'll probably be some issue at some point in time, but I don't even see myself using it, anywhere near.
Yeah, I mean that has to be the plan for me as well. Just
Yeah,
just assess the situation, and whenever we do feel like okay, there's a couple of players who feel like they might not start this week, which is ideally could be game week 13, but I don't feel like planning for game week 13.
yeah,
And we've seen enough, more than enough examples this season of planning specifically towards a free hit because it's a single game week and absolutely being railroaded by it,
yeah,
which is going to happen more often than not because players you own don't have are not bad. They don't have necessarily bad fixtures. It's just you want to try to target better fixtures, and it happens like I can give you so many examples off the back of my head. Like for example, this today, if you play UCL Fantasy, you might have invested into Inter versus Kairat Almaty at home,
true. Yeah,
and none of the Inter players scored any points.
yep.
And obviously, it's going to be bad because other players who had worse fixtures still scored points.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's the risk you always run when it's like a single gaming free hit
exactly.
and no one has blanks and doubles because like you can't even guarantee
Yeah.
that what you're playing against are people who aren't playing. You're literally it's like free at 6, gets absolutely cremated by like Bournemouth
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then obviously as you're saying too, it's like in theory, like the goal of our free hit should be like not having Arsenal on a toughish game, and then also having like 3x of a team that plays against Burnley, right, at home or something like that. But
Hmm.
yeah, like we've seen this a couple times this season. To be fair, like even like when you think about a game like when Burnley beat Sunderland or Burnley beat Leeds, like both times they actually just got outplayed, but still got the result, and you can definitely get hurt by that. So
Yeah.
I think yeah, just accept that you're going to get hit by variance for free hit when you want to, and just chill. I think that's pretty much my
Yeah.
approach.
Same.
All right, awesome. I think that's a good stream. You can probably call it there.
Yeah.
All right,
Now,
thank you.
some I don't know if you want to. There's only one question in the
Oh,
chat.
go
It's
for it, go
just
for it.
because
Let's do it.
yeah, okay. So Ala Asfa says this like so how is the best four in the bench don't have bench boost? So okay, so they just want to understand they should bench,
Mhm.
and it's basically from what I see, I'm going to give you like five choices. You can give me or six choices. You give me four.
Okay.
So between Vicario Dubravka, you can give me one choice who you think should be benched.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to say Dubravka. Oh, it's actually tricky this week. Maybe it's worth a think that. And then out of the outfield players, I'll say, uh, wait, who? Why is Muniz in defenders? I'm going to assume it's Munoz.
Yeah.
So okay, so Akiampong, King, NGI, and Margiu. I think it's pretty
I mean, you have
straightforward,
to
but I'm
bench King and Q, right?
playing with you. Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, Akiampong might not start.
He should, but he
You think
won't,
so?
is what I'm thinking. I
Hmm.
mean, off the back of how they played today, I think he should start, but
Oh,
I still
okay.
think they won't start him.
Who do they actually play today? Oh, they
Was it
oh, but to be fair, that's the
Tosin
thing is
and
they played Tosa and Hato, right? So they could very
Hato?
feasibly just play Fofana Chalaba, which I think is the problem.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure they're going to play that. That's why I said, like,
Oh, right.
I'm
So you
saying,
think
like, a lot of
Akiampong's
Chelsea
benched?
fans have been clamoring for him,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they
Okay, okay. I
still
see what you
keep
mean.
benching
Yeah.
him. That's why. Yeah.
In terms of like, I don't know. I think Tottenham's at home versus you guys, right?
Yeah.
I think I would just bench Dubravka personally.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I still would. I don't feel comfortable at all unless it's like he had Sunderland, in which he kept a clean sheet, obviously. But other than that, and I think no, he didn't even clean versus Wolves. What was the second game? I forgot. I think he cleaned in like 2 games this season.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the clean sheet's close. I just think Vicario's just been crazy. Like, just so good. Um, so maybe just back him to make a couple saves and get you a couple points from that. Is all I'll say.
Asking who he should captain between Bruno and Gabriel because he doesn't have the top three options.
Oh, wow. Who would you cap? I probably would cap Gabriel, to be honest.
Yeah, I would.
I actually would.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I hope he has triple Arsenal defense and just go for like quad Arsenal defense.
Literally, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not crazy, I think, at times. It's just
It's not. It's not. It's not.
it's just last week there was just an exceptional Haaland game, really.
Yes. Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
agree.
All right. Thank you guys for watching the stream. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Please feel free to like and subscribe, give it 5-star ratings wherever you're listening to this, and take care.